help this president get to where he wants to go, to bring in the right minds, to get the right people to think, because you can't rely on the arms control establishment that exists in America today, all the little Washington, D.C. think tanks, because they're not about arms control. They're about nuclear arms sustainment. Read the stuff they've been writing for, I apologize for the language, but it is what I said it was. It's just total crap. Tulsi Gabbard can build a new infrastructure to support this president. This president wants to do the right thing. And Aaron Mate gets full credit for this. He posted those words out there, but he said, this isn't going to happen because this is literally taking on the establishment. This is taking on the most deeply entrenched part of America. This can't happen without the support of the American people. And we have a president that knows how to mobilize the American people. This is a man that can go out there and hold massive rallies. And imagine if he started going around the country talking about getting rid of nuclear weapons, about disarmament, about making America safe again by getting rid of these weapons, and get the public up. The support, the political support for continuation of the nuclear enterprise will dissipate, will go away. This is the president that can do it. He's the only one that could do it. Read what they've been writing. They aren't about getting rid of nuclear weapons. They're about justifying the continued existence of nuclear weapons. They glorify nuclear weapons. They keep pretending they want disarm, but then they say, well, no, now we need to actually make new plutonium pits in Texas because, we need to consider doing underground nuclear weapons testing, because if we don't do that, then you're not in favor of nuclear disarmament. Don't tell me you're about arms control and disarmament if your arguments are for justifying why we need to build new nuclear weapons and all that kind of stuff. So he has to jettison all that. That's the establishment. That's the deep state. They're linked to the military-industrial complex. They're linked to the nuclear weapons establishment that has hijacked national security. We now have Doge going in and starting to clean things up. Wait till they start looking at the nuclear enterprise and they see how much money has gone down that wasteful garbage heap. Joe Biden ran on a platform in 2020 of what is called the sole purpose doctrine. The sole purpose of America's nuclear weapons is nuclear deterrence and not anything else. It would have gotten us away from any concept of nuclear preemption. He ran on that, said, I wanted to do it. Then he became president, and instead he puts out a national security guidance and a nuclear posture review that just keeps the old preemption in place. We had a reunion of INF treaty inspectors and negotiators, the original hardcore arms control people of the United States, the guys who actually did something in arms control. I'm proud to be part of that community. And we had one of our old colonels stand up and ask the question of the Biden administration's lead arms control person, why? How did this happen? This is the president. This is what he said. All but inevitable. So the easiest thing Trump can do right now, once he begins talking with the Russians, see, you have to solve the Ukraine problem. And then you have to tell the Russians, we no longer have a policy seeking your strategic defeat. That policy used to be implemented via proxy in Ukraine. Once we solve that problem, then we have to convince the Russians that we're not looking for another vector to strategically defeat Russia, that we aren't in that game anymore. And once we do that, and the Russians believe that, then we can come in and say, let's talk arms control. But the first thing we have to do is extend New START by 5 years. Get that extension in there. What that does is it prevents an arms race. And then we can sit down with the Russians and say, how do we cut? And meanwhile, you send a signal to the Chinese saying, look, we extended it, we've frozen it, now we're talking about cutting it. What we need you to do is slow down. We're not in a treaty relationship with you yet, but stabilize find a number that you're going to stabilize at so that we have a mark we can bring it down to. And then when we're all equal, we can get together. But here comes the hard part. How do you get the Chinese to get rid of nuclear weapons or meaningful strategic cuts when India has a nuclear arsenal? So India's got to get involved in this. But how do you get India involved without Pakistan getting involved? And how do you get Pakistan involved without getting Israel involved? And what he wants is basically to create the big three. Now, I think Modi in India might have some issues with that. India might have to become the modern day version of France, where you're carving up Germany at the end of the war and the Russians are going, we're here. The British are going, we're here. And the Americans are going, we're here. And the French are going, but what's about us? We're here too. Oh, yeah. Okay. Give the French a little bit thing here. So we might have to make room for India. I don't know. I hope the Indians watching this don't get mad at me because they are a big power. But in Trump's mind, although Modi was just there, think about it. of all the players, has he met with Putin yet? Has he met with Xi yet? No. He pulled the chair out from Modi and pushed him in. All right. So he's met with Modi. So Trump's not stupid. Trump's pretty damn smart. And what he wants is to get together and he looks at the problems of the United States. $34 trillion, $36 trillion. Hell, who the hell knows? We found out that America can't account for anything anymore, so it could be whatever the hell we want it to be. But we do know that left unchecked because of interest rates and everything, it's going to be $54 trillion before we know it. And then it just gets out of control. It's already out of control. And he wants to bring it in control. And one of the ways you do that is to bring control on defense spending. He said, I want to cut the defense budget in half. That's easily done. Hell, I've written about this in the past. It's the easiest thing in the world to do once you just accept the necessity of doing it and not being afraid to step on toes of people who make money for doing nothing. Because right now, a whole bunch of our defense budget is giving it to people who do nothing to promote the defense of America. We just told Europe. I mean, remember, it wasn't just but a year ago that we had a president talking about the sacred obligation of the United States to Europe. There was no sacred obligation. He was part of the establishment that had transatlantic bonds with the European establishment, and they played off of each other. It's not about the American people. The American people don't have a sacred obligation to Europe if Europe's job is to undermine American democracy. And we take umbrage at any notion. When I have the British saying that they can come across the water and arrest me and take me away because of a post I put on the internet, I say, bring it on. And I love J.D. Vance. Bring it on, Europe. You want to do this? You want to play that game against us, America? You want to call it the ugly American? I don't care. I don't care anymore because we're trying to break free of the old ugly America. We've got a president that says that we shouldn't be running around, trying to solve problems militarily, that these are economic issues. Yeah, he'd like to flex America's economic muscles. Good luck with that. I don't know how strong those muscles are, but he's done with the war game. He's done with playing the bomb game, and yet the world seems upset with this. And I'm sick and tired of that. If you want to bomb the world, Europe, build your own damn airplanes, build your own damn bombs, and pay the damn consequence. Don't expect us to do it for you. One of the biggest wastes we have out there is the nuclear weapons enterprise. We just spend a lot of money for a weapon we can never use because if we use it, we all die. And to accept this is the insanity of the United States for so long, is to say, well, we have to have it. But the problem is if you have it, then you got to use it. Remember, it was Biden administration that said, we're ready to have a nuclear exchange with Russia. They're ready to have a nuclear war with Russia, stated by a nuclear war planner and strategic command, acting on the instructions given to him by the Biden administration. This was in November, ladies and gentlemen. The United States was ready to have a nuclear war with Russia. That's insane. The literal definition of insanity. Thank God we have a president now who's saying, no, we need to get rid of these weapons. It's a difficult path. The Chinese have already come out and said, thanks, but no thanks. You and Russia got these huge nuclear arsenals. You guys work on getting your arsenals down, and then we can talk. You lead by example. And when the Russians are talking to the United States about nuclear reductions, we have to factor in the French and the British. And also, the United States is going to say, well, what about North Korea? So now we just identified all these things. So, an idea that I'm actually publishing an article today that I'm promoting this, we have to create a new paradigm of nuclear disarmament that is global in scale. See, Trump is already thinking smart, getting the big three together. But I'm telling you, Miranda, the big three can't talk about meaningful reductions unless you take into account the other factors that lead to the necessity to maintain nuclear deterrence. We're not giving up weapons if North Korea has weapons. It ain't going to happen. So, and North Korea is not giving up weapons as long as we have weapons. India's not giving up weapons. Pakistan's not giving up, the whole thing. Well, the easiest thing Trump can do right now, and I'm a strong advocate of this, is when he starts talking to the Russians, because remember, under Biden, we weren't talking to the Russians. There's one arms control treaty left, the New START treaty. It expires in February of next year. If it expires, there's now no constraint, and we will have an arms race that'll bankrupt everybody involved and make nuclear war The money that was allocated by the Biden administration, what's left of that continues to flow. There was no way the Biden administration was going to squeeze that tube of toothpaste clean before they left, and that money hasn't been stopped by the Trump administration. Indeed, there's been, for instance, the transfer of Patriot batteries back to Raytheon to be refurbished before moving on back to Ukraine. The transfer of 90 missiles. Patriot missiles. This, I think, is even an addition too. So there is this flood, but the United States is no longer the lead coordinator. We've backed out of the Ramstein coordination group. NATO now has the lead. I think it's the British have the lead on that, and Europe just simply can't do this job. It's the whole thing about the military supply line into Ukraine is collapsing as we speak. They're able to put in spurts in here, but what Ukraine needs is a fire hose, not a garden hose. And they don't have the fire hose anymore. And the other thing is that the Ukrainians, their manpower situation is collapsing on a daily basis. I mean, Zelensky came out with an interesting comment, which is the truth. He says, we can't have presidential elections because if we have presidential elections, we'll have to suspend military operations. And the moment we suspend military operations, our army ceases to exist. Everybody will flee the front. There's a huge desertion problem right now. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian troops are fleeing. If you recruit 10 soldiers and send them to the front line, 6 of those are going to desert within a day. And then the others are going to surrender to the Russians, and those that don't surrender die. This is the reality. Ukraine's manpower situation is a crisis that can't be resolved. According to Budanov, the head of their intelligence, Ukraine will cease to exist by the summer of 2025.